Okay, I think we can start. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you're enjoying the whole event. And I want to thank the amazing guys from VII for enabling for me to be here today. It's an honor for me. For the next 20 minutes, 19 minutes, we're going to talk about the brain and about learning strategies and how we learn best. And I'm going to share with you maybe 4 or 5 tools. We'll see how much time we have um, regarding best practices for learning. And I hope that will be useful for you both in your personal lives as people who learn, and also maybe you can promote some best practices of learning strategies with your colleagues or your families or anyone else at your workspace. Being able to learn better and remember better is really important for our quality of life. So I think it can be useful for you to get some insights about that. So my name is Gideon Zailer and I work in Methodica, and we're a consulting company in Israel dealing with neuroscience, digital learning, and organizational change. I'm going to focus today mainly on the field of neuroscience and actually talk about how we learn best and give you some tools and strategies for learning. Feel free to, first of all, say hello in the chat if you'd like, and maybe ask questions, or you can, we're a small group, so that's good news. That means we can actually talk to each other. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be able to refer and answer. So first question that might be interesting, and if anyone wants to write in the chat or have a guess, is how much are you going to remember today? I'm not sure that the slides are synchronizing. Can you see the slide with the question, or?
Yeah, we can see the "Did you ever learn how to learn" slide.
No, so I went by that. Let's see. Let me start again. Okay, can you see now the question? How much you're going to remember? Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
So it's a big question. We're meeting only for 20 minutes. How much do you think you're going to remember from today's session? And here are the answers. 30 minutes after I complete today's session, you will have about 58% of the content I'm going to talk with you today. And in 2 days, you will have only a third of everything I'm going to talk in these 20 minutes. And in 3 weeks' time, there will be only 15% left. And this is important to reckon that we should have empathy for our brain and know that we forget a lot, especially in situations like this at the moment when we are, you're meeting me only once, and we're not going to meet again. And then if we don't meet the content once again, then we will probably not remember it. So it is important for us to better understand what makes us forget and when do we remember. And it's important because our memories are a big database, and the bigger it is, the richer the database is, the more possibilities we have to get the right decisions when we are in conflict, or to identify if we have a new opportunity around us or maybe a danger. We can make better decisions if we have more memories. So remembering more from each time that we are learning is really important for the quality of our life. And that's why it's good for us to understand what are the practices that enable us to learn better. So I'm going to start with the good news, especially for adult people like ourselves here. And this is the research about the plastic brain, that there wasn't a big awareness for that issue until about 20 years ago. But for the past 2 decades, we know that we can learn everything, that our brain is very plastic, and it doesn't really matter what our age is or any background that we have or any learning gaps that we have. We can learn everything as long as we are dealing with our brain. Not that intuitive. Scientists thought otherwise until about 20 years ago. And now we know more than that. We know that it's very healthy. We know that one of the ways to prevent decline in our cognition when we are grown-ups is to learn and to challenge ourselves cognitively all the time. So it's important for us to know not to be in that adult trap when you say to yourself, just let me be with my habits and patterns and don't challenge me. No, the brain is actually asking us to challenge it all the time. Learning is actually very healthy, and we should see our brain plasticity as a gift and engage our brain and challenge it all the time if we want us to be healthier and in good cognitive state when we are older. And there's a big buzzword that maybe you've heard about called growth mindset. Growth mindset is the belief that we have a brain plasticity, that we can learn everything. Once students and teachers know that our brain is plastic, we learn better because we don't take our mistakes as an assessment about our abilities. We take our mistakes as data about what we should do to be better. And then we learn better and we get better results at everything we do. So growth mindset is a big buzzword today, both in the world of neuroscience, in the world of organizational behavior, in the world of management, of leadership. I suggest really that you Google just a bit about that because it's an amazing word and it could be a life changer for you if you understand that you should have growth mindset and know that you can learn everything if you're just using the right strategies and, of course, being persistent about it. So hopefully by now I've convinced you that learning is really important and challenging us is something we should really do. But now there's the big question of, is there a right way to learn or a wrong way to learn? So I'm putting here two sentences, quite provocative and extreme, but one of them is correct and the other one isn't. One says that 99% of people will learn best if they use the same 4 learning strategies. And the other one says actually the opposite, that each one of us has his or her own learning style and would need different learning strategies. So though this is a small group, you're invited either in the chat or if you want to speak up, or in the video, you can do like 1 or 2 and see what you think about the answer too. Okay, thanks. So of course the answer is number 1, and thank you for the one who knew that. Neuroscientists are very clear about that there is a right way and a wrong way to learn. It's not easy to say this in our days because these are days when we want to work on our individual, we are in the age of individuals who want their self-expression and their self-style, and this is important. But when it comes to what makes us remember something, we're all the same, and we should use exactly the same strategies, and this is important to know. So what I'm going to do in these 10 minutes that I have is share with you these 4 strategies. If you're going to use them, you will remember much more from every interaction of learning that you might have. Just before getting to these 4 strategies, I would like to tell you about another myth or another big confuse that we have in our lives. We tend to confuse between understanding and remembering. So each time we learn something and it's understandable, we feel that we understood it, we have small subjective illusion that we're actually going to remember it, but we're not. We know that understanding something is critical. Of course, we can't learn without understanding, but just understanding doesn't say anything about the prospects that we are actually going to remember it. This is why these 4 strategies I'm going to show now are so important, because they enable us not only to understand something, but also to remember it. So here's an important takeaway and insight. Whenever you understand something, don't relax, don't think everything is okay and that you're going to remember it. You need to use strategies for remembering, and let's have a look at them. So I'm going to demonstrate many of the principles that I'm going to talk in the next 10 minutes in this funny graph in which we're going to look. This is not a research, this is just a new technology of mobile electrodes that were submitted on a person, on a student, for a whole week to monitor the activity of that student's brain. So let's have a look at what's going on here. Again, this is not a research, but everything that I'm going to take from here is backed by research and evidence, and there's a lot of reference along the slides that you will be able to refer to. So this is a bit complex, right? So just have a look at my pointer. You can see on the left side, we have here from day 1 to day 7. And you can see that every day here is from 4 o'clock until 3 o'clock the next day, starting in the afternoon every time. So we have this person, he has homework here, and he has lab, he's a learning science actually. And he has some self-study over here, and he watches TV over here and over here. This is nice. And then at night he goes to sleep. He sleeps here and here and here and all over here. You can see the peak when we sleep. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then in the morning, he goes to class. Over here, class and class and class and class. And this demonstrates a lot about what we can understand about effective learning and about memory. So this is a funny example, but many of what we can see, many of the details we see here are actually these 4 strategies I'm going to talk about. So let's see, what are they? The first is not being passive when you learn. You need to be engaged. If we're talking about any learning processes should be active. And if we're just listening to something or just writing down what the professor is saying or the lecturer or the instructor, that would not be good for remembering. It would be good for understanding, but it won't be good for remembering. We must be engaged. Michal is asking if there is a meaning of where we are at the time of day. I will address to it in a minute. It's one of the strategies, so we're nearly there. Thank you for the question. So what we need to do as learners, we need to classify the material, we need to compare between content, we need to reframe it, to talk about it aloud, to say our opinion, to tell a story. We can't just listen or write down. That would not be effective learning in terms of memory. Again, it doesn't matter if we understand it. We will understand it if we have a good lecture, but we will not be able to remember it. So that was the first strategy, being active. The second one is really nice, doesn't take that much effort. It's really important for us to sleep. Let me explain in a minute why this is so important. Let's take a journey of a memory. Let's say I'm learning something new, like hopefully you're doing now with me. So the content goes into our working memory, which is part of our memory. And a lot of it goes out at the same moment because our working memory has quite a lot of limits in its capacity. But some of the stuff, I'm explaining this very simple now, some of the stuff goes to a temporary storage. That would be the places where I was active and engaged. This temporary storage is called the hippocampus. You might have heard about that word. And then when we sleep, there's really a dramatic issue. You saw that peak in the graph before. When there is storage of our memories into the long-term memory. Our long-term memory is a big hard disk that there's really no way at the moment that we know how to ever fill it. So there's a lot of space there. And that's why sleep is so important, because it takes our memories and stores them into somewhere which is bigger and stronger in its capacity comparing to our working memory. Third strategy, I'm going to ask you a question again with 4 answers, but just before answering, let me explain the idea. Let's say I learned, I can tell about myself in my, when I was in high school, I learned literature, and then I had my final exam in literature, but then I never met the content again because I did other stuff in life. So for me, it's more than 20 years, but in this study, we want to see what kind of memories survive after 20 years. Would it be, number one, if I get 100 in the final exam and my friend here gets only 20, will I remember more than him or her? Or maybe the number of repetitions I had with the content during high school because I never met the content later on and never saw anything about it? Would that be the game changer and make me remember 20 years later? Or maybe is it feelings that I have towards the content, which are the factor that will make me remember something, or feelings towards the teacher? So again, we're a small group, either in the chat or in the video. 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think? We have a 3 and a 4 and a 4. Okay, great. Thank you so much for participating. And 4 and 4. Okay, great.
I can too. Sorry.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't,
great.
I don't have video cameras.
No problem. Actually, this is the right answer too. So it's good that you said that. Thank you. Just before me announcing. So number 2, that's the answer. Our brain is wiring itself, and the number of times we experience something is the factor of are we actually going to remember it. It shouldn't be just rooting the knowledge. It should be diverse and in different contexts. But actually, the third strategy is called retrieval practice, and that means that we have to find ways to retrieve the content again and again, as many times as possible, as with many spacing between the retrieval practices, and in a mixed way and diverse way as possible, not meeting the content exactly in the same way. This is why, Michal, your question before was important, because being in a different context, in a different time, meeting the content in a different way is actually better for us than just doing it exactly the same time each time. So this is an important strategy, especially in the digital age, because it means that actually learning in small chunks and meeting the content again and again is much better than cramming it into a one-time event. Okay? So if I go to a conference in a face-to-face situation, I wouldn't go there for an hour, right? I would be there for a whole day. So that would be a cramped situation when I get all the content in the one-time event. But if I'm going to digital platforms and learn there, either in a VII environment or any other environment, it doesn't matter, then just small chunks, which I repeat again and again, would be much more effective for my memory. So I advise you to learn in small chunks, no matter what. Even you have a mission in work and you have to submit something next month, it would be best if you start just 20 minutes today and go to sleep, of course, and then 20 minutes tomorrow and go to sleep, and not work on it in a marathon in the last 3 days. It would be much better when you work in small chunks. So I really promote you to think like that, learn like that. It's amazing the impact of learning with a lot of retrieval practices.
Sorry, can I ask for one question?
Yes, of course,
Uh,
feel free.
I read that it's much better to repeat some content once a week during 2 or 3 months than to repeat is the content every day, because our memory works better on long time.
Yes, you're right in a way that there is important for the spacing. So you have to balance between the number of times and the
Mhm.
spacing. I'm not in a position to say, it depends maybe on the content and your effort, if it means once a week or every day. But let's say I have a 4 month period when I have to learn something, then yes, doing it once a week would be a good spacing. But I advise not only to space and not just do it, every day. I advise to find a way that the learning would be mixed, not learning in the same way, not in the same style. Sometimes maybe watching something, sometimes maybe answering quizzes, sometimes talking about it with someone else, not doing it in the same way, because we are building a network, and the network in a vein, and there's a meaning on how rich this network is. So diverse experiences make it richer. And the last strategy, because we are out of time, is actually making mistakes. I did my best in these 20 minutes that you would make mistakes, because you remember your mistakes better. And mistakes are something that we really want to remember. It's a survival thing for us. So actually, if there's a good climate in the classroom, it's quite good to make mistakes. We tend to remember them better. We're also quite fond of other people's mistakes. So even if there are other people making mistakes, it's a good thing for us to do. That's it for today, guys. I really want to thank the champions for VII. We have been working with VII for the past 2 years. It's a great success, and we have an amazing customer satisfaction, and we get an amazing service from them. So thank you so much for your service and for your value, and for inviting me to be with you today. I had a great time. All the best.
Gideon. Thank you so much for your time. If everyone's hearing me, I can just again thank Gideon for this amazing session. I've personally learned a lot from it, and also remind you that in 4 minutes we have the escape room experience. So you should get a notification soon over your screens, and I hope you can join it and escape the room that you'll get into with your team.
Take care. Bye bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.